Hi everyone, welcome to a new episode of Breakfast at Ruby's. This is episode 27. This is a weekly talk show / podcast on Twitch, YouTube, and your favorite podcast services. This is a show where I get two of my favorite content creators and we talk about some juicy stuff that's been going on social media, pop culture, all of that fun stuff. Today, I have with me two Aussies. We're doing an Aussie version of Breakfast at Ruby's, filming extra early. And by extra early, I mean it's 11 a.m. for me, so it's not that early, but we'll pretend that it is. Okay? But to my left, we have HealMeHarry. Hi.
Hello.
Would you please introduce yourself for the folks who may not
Yeah,
know
say, is this
of...
where I talk about me?
Yes, this is where you get to talk about yourself. It's your self moment, love yourself, speak
Let
your
me
truth.
have a moment. Can you just put your webcam the full screen for a moment, please? No, I'm kidding.
I would, but we don't have that kind of budget. But yes.
My name is HealMeHarry. I am a full-time streamer over on Twitch. We stream every single day, mainly playing Final Fantasy XIV. That's our main thingo. But it's all about chilling and hanging out and chatting. We're all queer as heck. And it's just like a nice chill space for us to hang out every night, Australian time. When I say night time, I mean Australian time. You can also find me on Twitter and Instagram with at HealMe_Harry as well. And yeah,
Yes.
nice to meet you.
Yes, lovely. Everyone go support Harry. And to my right, we have Petey. Hi.
Hi, hello. It's my turn. Oh,
It's your turn. It's your moment. The spotlight is on you.
Yourself.
Okay. Hi, everyone. I'm Lildarien, but everyone just calls me Petey. That is my name. I go by a lot of names, actually, but anyway. You can find me everywhere, mostly on Twitch, at Lildarien. It's all the same everywhere. Twitter, Instagram. And yeah, I'm a variety streamer. Lately, I've been playing a lot of Elder Scrolls Online, which has been pretty fun. But I do lots of stuff. I do nail art, which I kind of have here. You can see if you're watching. And yeah, we just have a good time. We're very chill little zone. But yeah,
Yes.
I'm happy to be here.
We love to see it. Go support Petey, Lildarien, whatever you want to call him. Just as long as you call him, as long as you follow the channel.
Yeah, exactly. As long as I'm being talked about, it's fine.
Exactly. And you can find me at Project Ruby on Twitter, Twitch, Instagram, The Project Ruby. YouTube is also Project Ruby. You can find Breakfast at Ruby's on all the podcast services. So Spotify, Apple Podcasts, all that beautiful stuff. So follow the channel, follow the podcast, all of that stuff. I am also a queer variety streamer. I do this talk show. I'm a gamer. And I also sing occasionally. So yeah, feel free to say hi sometime. Absolutely not. Absolutely. This is talk show day. She hasn't warmed up. This is, I guess they have to follow the channel to see the singing action.
Oh, that's it. Promo.
The premium content.
Yeah.
That you get for free, but in a different day, it's fine, it's fine. We get what we can, But speaking of premium content, if you want some premium coffee to go along your breakfast at Ruby's, we are
Smooth.
She tried. We are sponsored by grindingcoffee.co. They are a Black and LGBTQIA plus owned coffee business. So they have a wide variety of flavors and presses and all that beautiful stuff. They have free shipping in the US only, unfortunately. Us, European and Australian folks have to pay for shipping. But I promise you, it's worth it. It's some amazing quality coffee. I can't wait to get mine on the mail. You can get 13% off of your purchase, no matter where you get it, worldwide, with the coupon Project Ruby. So thank you, grindingcoffee.co, for the love. And let's go into our topics for this week. because we have some juicy stuff to talk
We
about.
have some spicy stuff today.
Some stuff happened, that's for sure.
Yes, that's always lovely. You know, you scroll on social media and you're like, "Oh, this is happening." A part of you is like, "Oh no." A part of you is like, "Yes, I have content for my talk show." So late last week, Henry Cavill posted a video on Instagram that showed his process of building a computer. However, the internet paid more attention to him rather than his computer. So there were two reactions to this. The biggest majority of the reactions were people basically thirsting over him and saying stuff like, "I wish I was those computer parts," and the good old classic, "My ovaries exploded." But others are questioning whether or not it's okay that people are sexualizing him. And even in the content creator scene, people are saying this wouldn't be appropriate if we did this to a fellow streamer or a YouTuber or whomever. So why are we doing this to an actor? And even from the perspective of this wouldn't be seen as appropriate if this was a female actor who did this and she got sexualized. So why is it okay to do it to him? So first things first, what was your reaction to his video? We can start with Harry. What did you think?
I mean, I didn't see it until after I'd already kind of seen it blow up on Twitter. Because, like, I'm not really big on using Instagram or anything. So I hadn't seen it until all of a sudden it was all over Twitter and everyone was posting their thoughts already. So by the time I got to sit down and watch it for myself, I kind of was a little bit skewed in kind of, I guess, my viewing of it. But I'm personally not the type of person that tends to like watch someone post something and immediately sexualize it. That's just not a place that I immediately go to, especially when it comes to celebrities and stuff. So my initial reaction was like, "Oh, cool, he's a gamer. Like, that's cool. Like, he's sharing that with us, which is obviously awesome." But then, yeah, reading the comments, it was interesting, and I'll let Darian say what his initial thoughts were first. But like, yeah, I have feelings. About how it was received.
Yeah.
I was actually the same. I saw a lot of the feedback and like I saw Twitter blow up before I saw the video. But in watching it, my first thought was, whoever came up with this concept deserves a raise because it's nerdy. It's got that geek like factor to it. It's sexy, obviously, but it's also controversial. Like they had to have known it would have been at least a little bit controversial, and they've done it anyway. And then it's blown up. And so now, how many people have seen the computer parts? Have seen everything? Like, just the concept of it. I was like, this is okay. I see what you're doing.
Right.
But yeah, I definitely have some thoughts as well.
Yes.
I think what was controversial was the curtains that were being used.
Has everyone seen the curtains? They were a choice.
What was worse? I don't know if anybody noticed, but if you look in the out the window because it goes from like day to night. If you look out the window when it's nighttime, it seriously looks like there's a face staring straight back at you. Did anybody else see that?
Oh no!
I need to.
Not the spooky content
thing I have ever seen in my life.
Oh no!
I will show you later. Like, it's so creepy.
Well, suddenly we're not watching that anymore. I will agree.
I do need to question.
Yeah, go ahead.
Does Henry have like a history of being into computers and gaming and stuff? Like, I don't really know him that well as a person. Like, you know.
Apparently,
it has been said in before. Yeah. Apparently, he used to be a really big World of Warcraft player.
Yeah.
Okay, that makes more sense.
Yeah, apparently he had an interview at a press junket where he said that he wanted to take time off and actually like build a computer and all that stuff. So I saw some people referencing that in the comments on his Instagram. They were like, "You finally got the time to build your PC." So I will agree with you. firstly saw the reactions to everything rather than the video. I only saw the video actually very recently. Because I was like, wait a minute, I only saw the reactions, I only saw little clips here and there and screenshots. I actually didn't see the full video, so I went back and I saw it, and I just saw it as like a nerdy, cute video. Like the song choices I thought were silly. Like I thought everything was just like quite wholesome, and like I obviously understand that like because he's an attractive person, people will just sexualize everything that he does, but I just thought it was so out of place. And some people were like defending it as like, oh, you know, he knows what he did because of the camera angles. I'm like, I'm sorry, he has cakes. It doesn't matter what camera angle he puts his camera in, like the cakes are gonna be there, the arms are gonna be there, like his body is not gonna change dramatically because of the camera angle. And would you be saying the same thing for female streamers or a female celebrity if she did that? Like, oh, she knows what she was doing, it's the camera angle. Like, she's building a computer, or in this case, he was building a computer. I feel
like the way it was produced, like the music that you've mentioned, the music is so over the top, it's actually ridiculous.
Yeah.
There's a particular shot, I think it's about 1:50 seconds in, where he's like holding a piece in front of his crotch, and he's looking at the camera like very much inviting a comparison that he's like doing something with his crotch. Like,
I did not even pick up on that.
Yeah, me neither.
His face
did not even. I did not. I did not even like pick up on that at all.
Obviously, it's intended to have a little bit of that sort of appeal to it, and I think in that regard, it's okay to have that sort of reaction, like, oh, that's hot, or like, oh, daddy, or like, you know, whatever. But some of the reactions that I've seen, like people live streaming their reactions and going like fully into it and just overly like I think that's taking it way too far. I think that was inappropriate.
I think for me it's more the tone that's taken. If it's taken in a way that's like complimenting in like a respectful way, that's different. Saying like, oh, he's so hot, or oh, like he looks really fit right now, or whatever. Like things like that is taken more as a compliment. When people start saying really creepy stuff, like that's like when it's really sexualizing stuff, like that's when I get a little bit uncomfortable. And people say, okay, so there's the discussion of, if this was a female content creator or a female celebrity that did this and they got sexualized, that people wouldn't be completely okay with that. And I've been reading through a lot of different responses to that, and like the most popular thing seems to be that because there's no history of systematic oppression and discrimination against straight white men, that kind of having that kind of sexual response doesn't hinder them in any way or put them in a position of being powerless in any way. Whereas, you know, when it's a female celebrity, there obviously is that history of that systematic oppression, which kind of changes the tone and the feel of it all. I understand that, and it's definitely why I think people think it's okay to do that with a male celebrity rather than a female celebrity, but I still don't know if that's 100% enough of a reason for it to be like acceptable behavior.
Right.
Yeah. The intensity of it is where it becomes a problem. I think that's where it's a problem.
And I think especially when it comes to the perspectives of the people who would usually be like, oh, let's not sexualize people, let's not sexualize content creators, then like Petey said, they will fully go on their live stream and they will fully react to it and just say like sexual stuff and like post clips from that on their socials. And it's like, this is not necessarily shade to that behavior. It's not like, you know, we hate the people who did this. It's not coming from that place. It's more like, I just thought it was a weird situation. I didn't think it was terrible. I didn't think it was great. I just thought it was weird. Like, why are we doing it?
Obviously, enough people have that kind of reaction that people think it's kind of a normal thing to do.
Yeah.
So obviously, it's not like picking out a specific thing. It's just yeah, I saw it and I was just like, oh, that feels wrong to me personally. I didn't really comment on any of that stuff, but I was reading a lot of it.
Yeah.
Um,
I just
but
thought
yeah,
it
I
was too
think like
much.
I was trying to relate it back to like if a woman was doing it, and I don't know why I kept going back to this, but does anyone remember the Jessica Simpson Burger King ad where she was doing a car wash with a Whopper burger in a bikini? And I'm
I
No.
like,
don't, but that sounds very ridiculous, and I feel like I would
that
be
was a
here for that
few
commercial.
yeah,
I would be like,
that was a few
yes.
years ago now, like back when she was, major, like during Newlyweds time. And yeah, she's just in this scanty bikini, like washing a car with the freaking Whopper in her hand. And I'm like,
Love
that was
that.
produced. Like, obviously, she's consented to do it, and like that was
Yeah.
produced to have a television
Yeah.
response. And like having those sorts of reactions to that kind of content, I think, is expected. Obviously, this is like different because it was filmed at home and all that sort of stuff. But it's still obviously he's getting some sort of kickback for doing it. Like it's yeah. Was it Paris? Maybe it was Paris Hilton. It was someone like that.
Yeah.
Yeah. And that was the only thing I could kind of think of, like a similar sort of situation.
Yeah, and I think I understand a little bit of the appeal of the video. People were like, "Oh, someone who's conventionally attractive is also a nerd. I love that for me. He's an ideal man for me." Like
Gosh.
to me that was just like such a weird thing, and also like to me I like he's of course he's attractive. Like I'm not taking that away from him, and that's not up for discussion. But to me it was just like he's just a buff white dude who plays a superhero. Like there's countless of guys that have that archetype, and like it's not like he's not necessarily someone who's like, oh, you know what, he's like, oh wow, like I'm mind blown by the looks and everything. I'm just like, okay, like sure, like I don't
It's pretty
know.
condescending, honestly, like to not expect him to have some sort of like passion that's a little bit intellectual. Like, that's
Right.
because he looks the
Yeah.
way he does. Like that's yeah. I don't
True.
get that.
See, that definitely has a background. Like that's rooted in that whole thought process of someone that is attractive is automatically dumb. And then if you're smart, then you must be ugly.
Yeah.
Like that's just like an old school
Yeah.
stereotype that obviously is poking its head out here.
Mhm.
Because of some of the comments being like, I can't remember why. One was just like, wow, a smart man that's also attractive coming from my heart and stuff like that. It's like there's lots of attractive, smart men in the world.
Right?
He's not the only one. Like
Yeah. They're like, finally,
Yeah.
after 2,000 years, we've got one.
finally, evolution has taken us to this point. Thank gosh.
Right? That even crosses over to the queer community, unfortunately, because I don't really see when it comes to now specifically speaking about content creation, because that's obviously a world that we're more familiar with. On Twitch, for example, I rarely see straight men getting sexualized for just existing and for being good looking. Meanwhile, I've noticed that going to people who are conventionally attractive and they happen to be gay or a part of any other spectrum of the queer community, they literally could be playing a video game, they could be baking, they could be building a computer, or they could be doing literally anything. And like a lot of the comments, and I felt bad for them because I'm specifically thinking about this one person. I'm obviously not going to say who this is because I don't want attention to be given to the situation. But I was watching someone recently, and I felt bad for them because they're a funny person. They make great content, and it sucks that like a lot of the comments from their community is like people making sexual innuendos about what they're doing, or people sexualizing them, and it's like they're not doing like they're not putting on like a cam show, like that traditional thing of like it's not like they're making the jokes themselves. It's not like they're, showing nipple. Like it's not like they're doing any of those things. Not that that would make it okay, if they're not consenting to you sexualizing them. It doesn't matter what they're wearing anyway, but it's not that kind of show. Like they didn't even have any kind of innuendo in their title that would invite that kind of joke. So
that's the important distinction, I think, is you can invite that stuff as part of your channel, or like if that's part of your branding, that you do invite that sort of stuff and engage with it, and you talk back, and you like, that's fine. That's 100% like a viable thing to do. But if someone is not at all inviting that, and it's just like coming, like I had a friend who had that problem where people they were just playing a game and they were getting sexualized just out of the blue, and it's like, what's going on? Like, why?
Yeah. Just Dance gets that a lot,
It depends on
actually.
your community. Sorry?
The Just Dance, when people play Just Dance, I feel like a lot of male streamers, and even female streamers, a lot of streamers who do Just Dance, because they're doing like a physical activity, and they're usually wearing something that would be seen as like revealing, just because it's like workout clothes, I guess. Like it would be seen as more revealing or whatever. People feel like that's an invitation to sexualize them or to say something. But go ahead, I'm sorry.
Body and appearance.
Yeah. But you were saying something. Sorry.
We definitely, as streamers, sorry. I know Harry's actually really good at this. But we have a lot more control to direct, I guess, where our communities go. I think Harry's really good at doing that. If you want to talk a bit about that.
I mean, being a queer streamer, obviously it's a part of queer culture. It's very common for people to sexualize and make sexual jokes and stuff, especially amongst the male, like gay men community. And that's something that I never really encouraged in my community, because I feel like that style of community only feels safe for those white gay men that want to do that.
Right.
Like, and I wanted my community to be more inclusive and include, not just that one thing. And I do know exactly what you're talking about, Ruby, when it comes to seeing people or male queer content creators making content and then they're getting engaged with in a very sexual manner. But I do think it falls on the content creator for them to make it known whether that's okay or not, because a lot of the time it's happening, and if they're not gonna, like, it's their community and the people responding to them on their Twitter posts and the people they're gathering around them, etc., around their brand and around their content, it is their responsibility to say what they are okay and what they are not okay with. And not saying anything is not a stance. Right. Saying nothing is not saying. Of course, when we're talking about consent, saying nothing is a no. Like, saying nothing is no. But when it comes to people saying something to you, if you're indifferent to it, they're not gonna realize that that's bad behavior, and you are in a position of influence. So you need to speak and use your influence to say what you are okay and what you're not okay with when it comes to how people are engaging with you as a content creator. I hope I got that out okay.
Yeah, no, absolutely. Yeah, you did. And even someone in chat said something about like, what's wrong with complimenting people? And it's there's a fine line between complimenting someone and having flirty or sexualized undertones to what you're saying. And that was something that I actually had to express very specifically on Discord. On my streams, I don't, I stopped really getting that kind of attention, because I feel like every time I would get that attention, I would just completely just like deny it, or I would be like, not here, this is not what we're here for, like, let's not. So I feel like my community, for the most part, has that kind of mentality of like, we can make jokes that are lewd at times even, but it's not about us as people. It's about maybe what the game is doing. Like maybe we make an innuendo or we make a joke or we make a pun, but it's not necessarily directed towards me or directed towards anyone in specific. So that's kind of the difference. Like it's one thing to go into someone's space and say like, oh, I love your shirt, I love your hair, or, you look really nice today, or whatever it is. That's a compliment. But to me, it's like, it becomes different when people make that, make the typical top or bottom sort of situations, or some people even ask, like they straight up ask, and you're like, that's none of your business, so don't even ask. But that's kind of something that bothers me a little bit, because I remember when I first started to kind of deny that kind of attention, I remember hearing a little bit of that pushback of like, but what's wrong with, like, learn how to take a compliment? Like, what's wrong with people complimenting your appearance? Like, your appearance is a part of who you are. Like, why not, accept that? And what's wrong with that? And it's like, it's not just that, it's like a pet name. Like, I don't like that, like, I don't like being called, like, if you're not dating me, don't call me baby, or, you know what I mean? Just like stuff like that, where it's like,
yes,
it's not, it's hard to kind of put into words sometimes, because if you just look at maybe like if you take a screenshot and you're like, this is not okay, people may look at it and be like, they're not necessarily like offending you, they're not saying anything that's like
text around it.
Yeah, exactly. But there's the subtext around it. Exactly.
It's kind of veering into like community management stuff, but that sort of stuff really, it can be anything. Like the things that you discourage or the things that you promote within your communities as creators are the things that will, like, you steer the boat basically. So if you see that kind of stuff and you shut it down and you tell your moderators or whoever's like helping you run stuff, like, this is not okay. If you see it, you have authority to shut it down. Like, if you do that and don't have zero tolerance, then you can sort of root most of that out. But it's when you sort of sit back and you don't react, as Harry says, like, that's when it makes other viewers uncomfortable as well, because they might, like, if they're new, they'll come in and see that and they think, oh, this is the space where this is a normal thing to do, and that's not what I want, so they'll go. Like, it's
either they'll see that and think that's okay in this space, oh, I'm gonna leave, or they'll see it and think, oh, that's okay in this space, I'm gonna say something inappropriate as well. Like, it can also snowball. Yeah, and it depends what kind of attention you are trying to drive. If you want that kind of attention, that's fine. There's nothing wrong with that at all.
Yeah.
It's just, you need to be clear and give kind of boundaries, I suppose. But this is very much in the content creator space. Like, for example, someone like Henry Cavill, he has an Instagram that's probably managed by somebody else, and they're not engaging with their community there. He's just posting things and everyone's loving it because he's a celebrity. It's very different when it's a content creator as opposed to a celebrity posting on social media. Like, it's a bit of a different ballgame for sure. Just to tie it back to the original topic.
Although I do think that there's something to be said about even people that have way bigger platforms, like celebrities. There is something to be said about them putting statements out of like, it's not okay for you to sexualize me just because, I guess, he obviously wouldn't be like, hey, just because I'm good looking doesn't mean that you should sexualize me. Like, of course, like, I don't think he would say it like that, but there is something to be said about maybe a caption or maybe a post like, hey, that was weird, I was just trying to build my computer, like, could we not sexualize me? Like, I think they could always do that, but this is just us discussing it. We don't know him personally. We don't know if he was comfortable with it, if he wasn't comfortable with it. So this is us just discussing that topic and what we thought about it, but we obviously don't know him. I can't get him on the show, so
I want to speak to him directly.
Right? Exactly. But speaking of controversies surrounding content and content creators, there was recently a gaming publisher that showcased their latest project called Gamer Girl. Some people, obviously, here on Twitch may already have known about this, but it's basically a game in which you would play as a moderator for a female streamer. The trailer briefly showed scenes where the female streamer was like asking her audience, and this is all fictional, by the way, this is not an actual female streamer, but she was asking her audience like, what should we do next? And then like you as the moderator would dictate what she would do next, if she would stay out late, if she would party, if she would stay home, if she would call her boyfriend, like whatever it might be. Like you would have all those choices, and the trailer even hinted at a potential abusive relationship between the streamer and her boyfriend. Obviously, from this description alone, you watching / listening can probably tell it was pretty controversial on social media. Some people did see potential in it and they thought it was an interesting concept, while others thought it was creepy and it portrayed female streamers in a stereotypical way. A little update, very recently, because of the criticism, they have taken down the trailer, and there is no clear indication of whether or not the game will actually come to light and come to fruition. So, but it is a topic that I think is worth discussing. And just as a disclaimer as well, we can only speak from our own perspectives. Obviously, we don't have a female streamer on us, with us on the show, so we wouldn't obviously be able to speak from that perspective, but we can speak from the perspective of fellow content creators, and we obviously have feelings about this. So as you've seen this trailer, what did you think about it? We can start with Petey this time.
Yeah, sure. When I first saw the trailer, I was actually really intrigued. I think mostly because it's a full motion video game, so it's a real person being recorded and acting. And I've since found out that this company has made a whole bunch of these. I didn't realize. The only other one I'd really known about was one called Night Trap I think it's from the 80s or the 90s, that just recently got released on the Switch. And so when I saw this, I thought, oh, this is interesting. And then I'm watching the trailer, and as a streamer, and we deal with things like moderators, some moderators trying to overstep boundaries and things like that. And then as you watch the trailer, it sort of veers off into almost like a horror thriller sort of way, where there's obviously some sort of someone is like a danger to the streamer.
Mm-hmm.
And I thought, this is really creepy. So my initial reaction was fairly positive to it. But then I was seeing the discourse sort of happen live, and it blew up, obviously. And then I did think more of it, and it's a tough one, because obviously that's not I can't speak to the experience of being a female streamer, and I see a lot of what happens, and it's awful. And especially coming off the back of recent events, like we've pretty much had another Me Too moment within the space, with lots of abusers being revealed and all that sort of stuff. And the timing is definitely awful. They couldn't have prepared for that, obviously. Like, they could have delayed it, I guess, but the timing was terrible for it. So there was no way it would have ever had a good reaction, I think, from the public anyway.
Yeah.
I mean,
sorry, what was your initial reaction, Harry?
This was so cringy to watch.
Right.
I felt so uncomfortable so many times watching this. I felt that, when someone is performing, like you're watching a comedian or something, and none of their jokes are landing, everything's going wrong, they've had a costume malfunction, and it's just, you just feel bad for them. Like, it was horrifying, and then it literally turned into a horror by the end.
Yeah.
Like, I was so confused. It's really cringy.
Yeah.
It obviously plays to this fantasy of meeting a female streamer and getting really close to her, and the fact that the player gets to choose things for her, like, oh, you should go out alone tonight, or you should go with your friend. Like, I just the whole thing bad. If they were coming from the perspective of, hey, let's do this kind of interactive game where you're a moderator for a female streamer, and then actually educate the people that are playing on the shit that female streamers have to go through as a content creator all the time. Actually show them, like, put comments in the chat that are creepy and weird that you obviously have to then get rid of to like progress in the game or whatever. But like, show them what it's actually like being a female streamer. Like, I'm obviously not a female streamer, but I have lots of female streamer friends, and the things that they tell me, I was like, I have never had to deal with that, not one time, as a male presenting content creator. Like, it's intense, the stuff that they have to go through. And then this game, like, it doesn't help at all. At all.
Yeah. I was watching immediately as the news of this game broke out. This actually got posted on I don't know if it was the PlayStation Twitter or YouTube, but they immediately took it down when they saw the first, I guess, batch of reactions, and eventually the publishers took it down as well. They did say that their intention was to like bring awareness to the dangers and to the harassment that female streamers go through. But I was watching a reaction from Alana Pierce, and she's a very prominent female. She used to be at IGN, and she works for a lot of gaming channels and stuff like that. So and her reaction was like, it was her biggest nightmare, because she has dealt with like a stalker before, and she was like, this is just like, it could have easily been a game that, like you said, Harry, that educated people on the struggles that female streamers go through. And even like, if you maybe twisted it around and maybe you played as the streamer, and like, let's make these decisions and see how the community reacts, and or whatever it may be. Or even like, maybe you play as the boyfriend who's trying to protect her from the creepy people on the internet or whatever. And there was a specific plot point in it that I also had a problem with, and Alana specifically, she had a problem with it as well, where it was this idea that for female streamers or female presenting streamers, there is this kind of culture sometimes where members of the community, and specifically male members of the community, will look at a female streamer and they'll be like, oh, your boyfriend is an asshole. I would be a better boyfriend to you. You know what I mean? They have this thing of like, I would be a better partner to you. And they kind of idealize this in their head. And I didn't enjoy that as well in the trailer, of like, oh, of course her boyfriend is abusive. You know what I mean? It's like, oh, of course we have to be the ones saving the day and being like, oh, I'll be a better boyfriend to you than he will. And maybe that wasn't their intention, but the problem is that it's how it came across. That's, they put together the trailer, multiple people had to approve of it. I don't know how it even got to the PlayStation like uploads. Like, I don't know who at PlayStation thought that was okay, because I consider
it's probably because they did. Sorry, you go.
I was just gonna say
it's probably because they did pitch it as this, like, we're educating people,
right
thing.
Yeah.
But it didn't land that way, though. That's the problem.
I feel like a lot of people also clicked off from the trailer before the end, and I saw a lot of discourse around people. The way that they were talking, it sort of insinuated that you were playing as the person that was going to try and murder her at the end. Like, that was
some people were fiction. Yeah.
When the perspective is of someone who is intended to help her navigate away from that ending, which I think is a distinction that needs to be made. Like, a lot of people are saying, "Oh, this is, this is basically a simulator for stalking someone." It's like, well, no, it's someone that is a part of it, but you are not being that person.
Yeah.
Which I think.
I mean, but
it could have obviously,
but
like, the trailer could have been done in a better way, because obviously,
yeah,
people had that initial reaction, so obviously the message was terrible.
But even then, as a moderator for someone's channel, it's not up to you to tell her like whether she can go to a party by herself or not. It's not up to you to, like, you know what I mean? They're making it sound like, oh, if you become a moderator for a female streamer, you get to become a part of her life. Like, like, I don't know. It still feels weird. It still feels really weird to me.
And I think the video as well, like, that added realism with then that creepy factor, it just didn't work. If it was presented in a different way, maybe. Yeah, it's just.
I don't know if this is true. I don't know if this is true, but there was like a post circulating around on Twitter. And like I said, I don't know if this is true because I didn't actually research it. But it was basically someone put a picture of who they said was the dev team that did it. I don't know if this is true, but it's literally like a team of all white dudes.
Oh, I think I did see that too.
I wouldn't be surprised.
I don't know if it's true or not. I didn't research it. But...
and I think it does need to be said as well that apparently the main actress improvised a lot of the dialogue, or she helped write the dialogue. They've definitely mentioned that she had a lot of input in that, and but then they're also kind of using her as a shield.
Right.
They're like, oh, we had a woman help, so it's fine. Like,
a woman should have written the game if it's meant to be from a women's like, if it's meant to be about female streamers.
Yeah, it's like if you're putting her in a really awful situation now swim. Like, the sharks all around you now swim. Like, she can't save a sinking ship, you know.
Right. Yeah. And it didn't help that it portrayed, like, even the main character that's supposed to be the streamer. She even, like, before literally seconds within the trailer, I was like, uh-oh, this is very stereotypical. This is like a girl wearing a tank top, like a crop top, and she's wearing very short shorts. I was like, okay, is this how we're really portraying female streamers as a whole? Like, obviously there's people who are that kind of streamer, and there's nothing wrong with that. But I was just saying, like, is this how we want to portray all female streamers? Because, like, this is not the content that all of them do. And obviously, within one trailer, you couldn't potentially cover every aspect of, female streamers and all that stuff. But I was like, it just seemed like that stereotypical, like, just chatting streamer who's like, oh my god, guys, thank you for the tips. And, like, she's, like, just jumping around her room and, like, I don't know, and the community has a lot of control over the content because they're the ones putting a lot of money into it. It just felt like it was doing a lot.
There was so much more they could have pulled from to show. It could have been even more impactful if it was someone who wasn't running a stream like that, who was still getting that sort of feedback from chat.
Totally.
And then that sort of would show that anyone gets that awful, like, feedback from random people on the internet. Like, it's not just people who, address slightly more revealing or whatever. It's everyone gets it.
Yeah, totally. Yeah. So I was gonna ask, do you think people were too harsh on it? But I think we pretty much answered that. But I would be interested to see if they're gonna maybe put together a different trailer that maybe, if their intention was to do something else with the game. I wonder, like, they probably have hours and hours of footage that they could probably put together to make the game more acceptable. They did say that they interviewed a lot of female streamers and all that stuff, so I wonder, a small part of me wants to give them the benefit of the doubt and be like, okay, since you did make so much research, I wonder if, there's a chance that the trailer just didn't portray the game in the best light. But they didn't address it at all. They just took the trailer down. They left most of their posts up that was defending the intentions of the game. So I don't, at least from the time that we're recording this, obviously. So who knows? Like, do you think there's a chance that this game may come out at all and it will be different from our reactions?
There is a part of me that does want it to come out, and I probably would play it, but I wouldn't stream it. I would just play it on my own, just to see, just to experience it. Someone in chat did bring up a film on Netflix called Cam Girl, which when I was watching the trailer, I was like, oh, this is kind of like a video game version of that film. But that again even though it was a movie, it had a supernatural element to it, so it was kind of removed from the immediate danger that this game kind of is showing, and I think that's what makes it really uncomfortable. It's too set in realism. It's
if what they want to do
it's not
is
this game. It's just like a simulator, basically.
If what they want to do is release an educational experience, and I hope they do release it if that's the intention, but I hope that they go back and get a more diverse team to work on it and get it to where the original intention was meant to be, because it sounds like their intentions were good as far as we can tell, but the result that they came forward with was no.
Yeah.
Bad. Bad.
Exactly. And just as a clarification, because someone did ask if I mentioned that they interviewed female streamers. They interviewed female streamers during the process of developing the game, or so they said. So I was also thinking, like, what if what if they actually got a streamer to do it? Like, who better to play the part of a streamer than an actual streamer?
There has to be someone that with that sort of acting chops who's also streaming. Like, there's a lot of actors on Twitch.
And they would be able to properly portray the part, and they would know all the intricacies about what it's like to be a female streamer. Because as much as this actress, she may have had done research or whatever, she probably, as she was improvising, she probably didn't know, or she probably had a different idea of what a streamer was, or what she was supposed to do as a female streamer. But I just hope that's
why they did bring in a few other. Because I did see there was a female streamer who was promoting it and saying she was involved in the project and stuff. But it probably would be a much better perspective if it did come from someone that who was in the industry.
Although from the trailer, I don't know if the concept of the game is anything. If the trailer properly represented the game, I don't know if any female streamers would actually want to be in the game. Maybe in the process of the interviews, but I don't know if they would be like, I don't know, this hits too close to home.
The problem is, even if they're interviewing female streamers to write it and stuff, they don't have the experience of what it is like to be like. It's like getting a white person to create a video game about what it feels like to be the victim of racism. Even if you interview people about it, you will never be able to fully understand the complexities of the situation. You can interview, but you're still going to take that information and you're still going to see it through your lens of your experience. And that is what's happened here. They've taken the thing and they've done the interview, and the female streamer has said, I had a stalker and this happened and rah. And they've just taken that and been like, oh wow, that'd be great drama. Let's put it in the game.
Right.
Sorry. that's how I feel it happened.
Just writes itself.
Totally.
Yeah, that's kind of how I felt too. I was like, if they did interview them, it probably came from a place, and it's reminding me a lot of the queer representation in The Last of Us 2. Obviously, I'm not gonna get too much into it and spoilers or anything like that, but it seemed as though if they were aware of some of the struggles that queer people went through, I should say, they probably were like, oh, that would be good drama that would be a good plot twist, that would be a good thing to include in there, and it just turned into what people are referring to as trauma porn, where basically it's like the queer characters are just going through so much. On top of that, they have to go through, homophobia, transphobia, dead naming, all of that awful rotted stuff. But I'm not gonna get too much into it because I haven't played that game, but I have seen some people voice their opinions on it, and I'll leave it at that.
I did when I was thinking about this, I was thinking about the reaction to The Last of Us 2 as well, and a lot of the negative reaction to that was the realism with like the gore and the there's some really intense stuff in it that I think could also relate back to the uncomfortableness of Gamer Girl being so real. It's just like that. It's just too close to reality, and it makes people uncomfortable.
Yeah.
So yeah, I did think of that game as well.
Mm-hmm. But although I don't think there would be any way, like even if this game was like anime style or if this game was like cel shaded, I don't think the presentation of it would make it any less bad.
That would make it worse.
It'd be like, oh my god, look at that adorable anime girl.
I love cringy media. Like I love bad movies. I love bad TV. Like, so I think that's why I didn't see the cringe straight away in that context.
Right.
So I was like, oh, I would actually really like this. Like,
yeah.
I love cheesy movies, bad acting.
Yeah, at first I was like, this could be interesting. Like a streamer character could be interesting, but then the more I saw that trailer, I was like, uh oh.
Yeah.
And like it's just,
if you do want to see a good stream thing, go watch Cam Girl on Netflix.
There you go. Not that streamers are cam girls, but
No. I was watching that and I was relating to it as Twitch. Just like a quick summary. Oh, I'm going to give a quick summary of it.
Yeah, sure.
Basically, it's a cam girl. She's sort of mid-level, and she wakes up one day and her account is locked out. She can't get into it, and then she sees a notification that her account has gone live, and she looks at it, and it's her live, but it's not her. Like, what's going on?
Oh, creepy.
It's spooky, and yeah, it's great.
Alrighty,
that's interesting.
Let's get into some Q&A action. This is actually, I think this is probably the first episode where we're doing some Q&A. So if anyone who is watching this on Twitch, you get to ask us some questions. It could be about anything as long as you keep it appropriate, as long as you keep it within terms of service. Don't be nasty. And if you're, watching on YouTube or listening on your favorite podcast service, then stop by Twitch sometime and you get to ask us some questions. The first one comes from Cabbage God, and the question is, do you feel there are any games currently out that do represent the LGBTQIA plus community? If not, where/what do you feel needs to be done or start to get a positive and / educational representation? Ooh, some good representation in the LGBTQIA plus community. I will say there is going to be a game coming out in August called Tell Me Why, and it's from the developers that made Life is Strange, and they worked with GLAAD, and GLAAD is a queer company, I guess, that works with the film industry, and they're now working with the gaming industry to make sure that the queer community is getting represented correctly. So they're releasing the first episode of this episodic game called Tell Me Why, in which they have a male trans character as the lead character, and they worked with GLAAD, so I have really high hopes that the game is going to have proper representation. I think The Sims did a really good job. The Sims as a series did a really good job at normalizing same-sex relationships, and now with recent with The Sims 4, they have done a good job at normalizing trans identities with the way that you're able to customize your character. It doesn't matter, if you're putting on quote unquote male or quote unquote female clothes. It doesn't, like, they let you choose your body type. They ask you if your character pees standing up or sitting down. It asks if your character can get pregnant, and those are things that.
So interesting. I didn't know that.
Yeah, and those are
That's
things
cute,
that
yeah.
are related, that aren't necessarily related with gender. Like, if you think, obviously, as a more inclusive society, it's not just women who can get pregnant. If you're a trans male person, or if you're a trans individual who's non-binary, you can get pregnant as well. So the fact that Sims has always normalized at least same-sex relationships, but now they've taken it a step further with trans representation on their game is really, really good.
That's awesome.
I guess in that same vein, then Animal Crossing is probably in a similar way, because you can change your body type and body shape and stuff at any time. You can wear anything.
Yeah, they don't ask for a gender or anything in Animal Crossing. It's just you put on your hairstyle. You can present more feminine or you can present more masculine. You can change it at any time, which is really cool. Like, gender just doesn't come into it at all in Animal Crossing, which is nice, kind of.
Yeah.
To have a game where I don't have to worry about it for once.
Do you have more games that you think of for queer representation? While you think of more, I will answer the part of the question that they asked about what should be done in order for the community to get better representation in games. I think a really good step is working with GLAAD, for example, and having diverse teams. Like, I understand if you're an indie developer, you may not have the resources to work and to hire more inclusive people, or to hire more people and extra staff and all that stuff. But I do think that working with GLAAD and working with queer content creators, queer teams, queer testers for the games, because obviously before a game comes out, it has to be tested by multiple people, and I think I think it's very important, like, especially if you're going to have a queer story, and if you have the intentions of representing queer people, definitely work with people from that community, and work with a company like GLAAD, for example. I keep saying company, an organization like GLAAD.
I think also hiring practices and hiring diverse teams to build your games will eventually lead to things like, this isn't a queer thing, but when the new Spider-Man DLC was announced, the Miles Morales expansion to the recent Spider-Man game, there was a lot of positive feedback around the way his skin tone was lit, because it was much more natural than is usually seen in games. And that was linked back to a particular member of the dev team who really fought very hard for the particular lighting that they used on his skin tone. And so I think if we can have more diverse people building games, then they can just casually be putting their own input into what comes out at the end.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's what I was about to say as well, is that, like, I don't think it, as much as working with other third-party groups when it comes to making better queer representation and stuff, we need to bring it back further and normalize queer people in game dev job roles.
Yeah.
We need to roll it back and normalize, feminine presenting people or females getting into the games industry, because it's still a predominantly male-owned industry. We need to really roll it back and go, okay, well, these people need to be in these jobs. We don't need more. We don't need white straight men trying to make games about queer people. Like, of course, when we have trying to write queer characters, because they're never going to get it 100% right, because they don't have the experience. It goes back to what we were saying before. We just need to normalize and encourage these people to be in these roles and be in these jobs, because that's the only way we're going to get good queer representation, is when queer people are the ones actually writing the characters.
Exactly.
And it goes further into who is playing those characters, even from a voice acting perspective, because the thing that I'm excited about as well, I keep talking about Tell Me Why, but I think it's a game that deserves to be talked about, is that the actor who's playing the trans character is a trans individual. So it goes to show that I think a part of them working with GLAAD probably, went with that decision of like, hey, hire people who are of that experience, because they will portray that in the best way possible, because they've lived it. They know even if they haven't lived it, they know of that experience because they are a part of that community in a way that a cis straight white male wouldn't be, and that's not to say that they're incapable of doing stuff and they're not capable of telling these stories, but if they work with people who are able to tell these stories, it can be more of a collaborative idea. If you look into the TV world, you obviously have Pose, who is, at the end of the day, Ryan Murphy, a cis white man, is behind it, but he has a team of people who are trans, people of color, and they truly created this show. Ryan didn't create this show, he works on it, but it just comes with that as like, you can be an ally and you can make a good show or a good movie or a good game that is representative of that community, but you really have to do, and you have to put in the work to actually make sure that the team is diverse, the people who are playing the parts are actually people who lived those stories and they've lived through those experiences, and not just, do the bare minimum or whatever, Yeah.
And that's why Pose is so heckin' good.
Right?
I haven't seen it yet.
Because it's literally written by, queer people of all kinds and people of color as well. Like, that's why it's an amazing show.
Yeah.
Because it's real and the characters are so believable and in depth, and just, it's a great show. If you haven't watched Pose, by the way, on Netflix, you need to watch it.
So good. They are heavily inspired by the documentary Paris is Burning, and you can definitely tell there's a lot of references. There's a lot of real life crossovers. They even have people from the original houses of voguing, and they have been like a part of the show, like with small appearances, with guest appearances, with just the names being mentioned at all. So it's a really, really good show. Cabbage also asked, do you think it's also on us as a community to put ourselves out there and willing to help rather than sit back and wait for something to be released? I think that goes with the discussion of, if you don't like, I know that's not what you were saying, Cabbage, but I think sometimes people are like, if you don't see stuff that represents you, make it yourself, kind of thing, or put yourself out there and make it work for yourself. I do think that not everyone is going to be a gaming developer, but I think what we can do as queer people is like, I think we're at a point where we can't accept the bare minimum anymore. It's not like, we got a same-sex kiss on that, on that game. Great, that's amazing representation. Like, no, like, make sure to write complex characters. Make sure to write characters that are relatable and they're not stereotypical and they're not problematic to the community. I think what we can do...
Killed off immediately.
Yeah, or that, exactly, or or towards the end of the game, or towards, for the sake of a plot twist, or for whatever, or for shocking value, I think what we can do as a community is, if you're not a developer, if you're a streamer, for example, I think what you can do, or a viewer or a gamer, I think what you can do is you don't give those people your coin. Like, if people put out a game that doesn't properly represent you, don't pay for it. Like, don't buy it, don't promote it. If you buy it to, get your own opinion, don't publicize it. Like, do it privately and then you write your thoughts about it. Don't actively feed into the machine of like, oh, this is good representation, when if it's not, just call it out, you know? And if you are working in the gaming industry, and even if you're not a part of the queer community, try to be a better ally and be like, hey, this room is not very diverse. Can we hire people who are of different
Yeah,
experiences than mine? Like, can we please?
help lift up other voices.
Yeah, exactly. Um, yeah, what do you think? Do you think do you think we should be more the responsibility should be more on us as a whole, as a community, or do you think it's more
I,
on them as the
I think it's
developers?
definitely we're kind of at a point now where audiences have a lot more say in what's going on. Like the feedback is so immediate and so like with the Gamer Girl trailer getting taken down almost immediately because of the feedback. Like I think we have a lot of influence now that we didn't have even say 10 years ago with media now. And so them seeing that sort of feedback is what's informing a lot of change that we're seeing now and stuff that's coming out. So I guess in that way we can. Um, yeah, I'm not sure. I'm not sure.
I think
Yeah.
I think it does. I think it comes back to again normalizing queer people and female presenting people be getting into game development in the first place, because we're discouraged to do that from childhood.
Hmm.
Like if you're queer going through high school, I can't speak from everyone's experience, but going through high school, coming out as queer or coming out as gay, I was told by so many people that were like, but you play video games, you can't be gay. Like that was literally
Wow.
what people would say to me. And it's normalizing us being interested in these things and allowing the talent to then roll into those jobs when they become available. But it's from there, and then it's also from a level of discrimination, because queer people are less likely to be in these roles that are making gains slash less likely to be in any role of power.
Hmm.
And it really just rolls all the way back to that foundation of let us have the same opportunities.
Yeah.
um Yeah, I definitely don't think we should sit back and wait for things to be released if, like, we really want something better to be released. But at the same time, we all have our skills and we all
Yeah.
have our voices and we all use them differently. So, like Ruby said, we're not all game developers, like, we're, for example, here we're content creators and we do our best to use our voice to represent us as best we can. And then, hopefully the more we normalize this stuff for queer people and for female presenting people, they will then bring their talents into their spaces
Yeah,
and then
absolutely.
make those spaces more, better representation of those people. Yeah.
Yeah. So this is gonna be the last question of the day. Comes from Dio in chat. Has anyone played a game slash watched a show solely for the fact that it advertises LGBT representation? Yes. Absolutely. I have watched. I think it's kind of unfortunately it's a running joke sometimes with the queer community of like, oh, you don't know what it's like to be queer until you watch 20 something episodes of a show just for a gay kiss. Like, um, just for that one moment. And I think that is why it's especially important to tell proper stories, because a lot of the times there is such a thing as queer baiting, where a show hints at a possible same-sex relationship, or they hint at the fact that that character has a deep secret, they may or may not be trans, and then you watch the show and it's like, oh, just kidding, they just were drunk that one
But
day and they did, yeah,
and they leave it to the community to write fan
yeah,
fictions about it. For they leave it in a way that it's not going to offend conservative people and it's not going to offend queer people, but both can take what they need out of it, and then
Yeah.
that media then makes heaps of money from both sides.
yeah.
Yeah.
But yeah, I'm guilty of that. I've totally done that, and that's how I got into Glee at the time, because literally my mom was watching it, and I saw it, and then the episode that was showing was the one where Kurt came out as gay, and I was like, ooh, okay. And it was, at the time, it was good representation. As the show went on, unfortunately, the representation for trans folk wasn't the best.
I stopped watching.
Yeah.
Well, it's for the best. It's for the best that you stop watching after like 3 seasons or something, because it just gets worse and worse. But yeah, are you guilty of that, PD, of watching a show? Or
I'm trying to think of a show that was specifically not that. Maybe Dawson's Creek back in the day, because that had a really like shocking. There was a character that was introduced who was gay, and I just remember that being such a big deal back then. But I can't remember anything like that I sit down and watch specifically for that reason. Other like I would know it was happening straight away, like something like Queer as Folk or Queer Eye for the Straight Guy, or that sort of stuff.
Yeah. I remember Will and Grace as well back in the day. I was like, "Ooh, okay, yes." And then for me, a lot of the time, it's like I start a show because, like, for Pose, for example, I got told it was like it had great trans representation. It represented the community, the queer community as a whole, really nicely. So that was that was what attracted me to that show. But at the end of the day, the show keeps me by being really good and portraying our communities as well as possible. So
for me, it was Dragon Age.
Ooh.
Dragon Age. It was all Dragon Age. Yeah.
Yes.
I got so into that series purely because when I found out from a friend when they were like, yeah, there's certain characters in it that are gay or certain characters that are bi and rah rah rah. And I ran to it immediately.
Yes. Dragon Age was the first, if not the first, one of the first games to do that. So props to them.
And like in a very in-depth way as well. Like like in Inquisition, like there's one character that is purely like male gay, and the story with him is actually really well done and really well written and represents lots of queer issues and stuff. Like it's really cool. I mean, it's very specific to gay men, that one, but it was still really cool. Yeah.
Yeah. Some people are saying Mass Effect was an example of queer bait because it took 3 games to get to a same-sex relationship. Yeah, people were saying Will and Grace, Sense8. Ooh, that was a good show on Netflix. Sense8, so good. The L Word.
Does Drag Race count?
I don't know if it counts as like the best representation. I haven't seen it in years, so I wouldn't know. I vaguely remember Will being very like, I'm not that gay kind of thing. Like he was like very straight acting and all that stuff. But I watched for Jack anyway, so it's fine. But he was again very stereotypical, and so yeah. Ooh, The New Normal. I remember that. Yes, it was a story about a gay couple. Yeah, I think Ryan Murphy was responsible for that one. Very good. Very good stuff. Thank you for the questions, everyone. Now we have a little segment where we highlight the things that we're living for, whether it's shows, music, whatever it might be. My personal picks I have 3 today. The first one is Virtual Gaming Library. It's a YouTube channel, and it's such a nerdy thing, but they basically make compilation videos of like all the PlayStation 1 games, all the Mega Drive / Genesis games, GameCube, and they just have this like 3 to 4 like hour, and they showcase like a few seconds of every single game from that platform, and I just go through those through those videos at like 2 times speed sometimes, because some of those are very long, and it reminds me a lot of like those games, some of the games that I played back in the day, or games that I played demos of but I couldn't remember the names of for some reason, and it just gives me a lot of memories, and I keep adding them to my list to play on stream as well. So that's how I'm spending a lot of my free time these days. I just put it on the background and I look over my other monitor and I'm like, ooh,
That's really cool. Great
yeah,
nostalgia.
for sure. And another thing that I've been adoring is Final Fantasy VII. Speaking of nostalgia and retro stuff, I've been playing the original Final Fantasy on stream, actually, and it's been so much fun. That game, I thought it was going to be...
The original? Or the
Yeah,
remake?
yeah, the original. I
Ah.
thought I was under the impression, because I only had played, funny enough, I played the prequel and the sequel, and I saw the movie, but I've never played the original. And I had this idea that the game was like so serious, and Cloud was always portrayed as like this emo boy, no emotions, he's so hardcore. But in the original game, he's like funny, he's silly, he's sarcastic, he's sassy. The art style is cute to me. Like I've gotten to a point where I just find it adorable. They look like little Legos. And I adore it. I don't know. It's my first time getting into it, and I'm adoring it through and through. So I definitely recommend that. Obviously, the remake is also out, but it's not covering the entirety of Final Fantasy VII. I've already played through the part that allegedly is covered in the remake. So
Right.
It's not very long in the original.
Yeah, it's not. I was like, oh, and we're out. That was like 20 hours. Great. Last but not least, I have BTS's latest Japanese album called Map of the Soul 7, The Journey. Most of the songs on there are just Japanese versions of their Korean songs, but they have 2 or 3 Japanese exclusive tracks that are really good, and obviously written by some of the members and all that stuff. So good stuff. I've been thoroughly enjoying that as well, and it's funny to listen to.
Yes, Stan.
Yes. It's fun to listen to like Japanese versions of K-pop songs, because sometimes they do different things with the vocals. I know with Blackpink they do English versions of the raps. So yeah, it's really cool to see how they change it up for the. Sometimes they add English parts as well. Just generally speaking. So I'm always very curious to hear how differently they make it in the Japanese version. What about y'all? What about you,
I
Harry?
feel like we might have to do a.
Oh.
We might have to do a K-pop episode.
Yes, yes, please. If there's any
Sorry,
K-pop
Harry.
drama going on, I'll be like, hey, let's call the stands. Who's down for an episode?
I've been like slowly getting back into my K-pop loop as well. I used to be like more into it last year, but I'm started to get back into it again. I'm a big Blackpink fan, so
Yes.
I've been getting into some of their new music and stuff, which is good. But in terms of things that I'm living for at the moment, obviously Final Fantasy 14, because I played every single day.
Yes.
And I have for like the last 7 years. But they have a new patch coming out soon.
Do you have like
Sorry?
a favorite like expansion or moment within the game that's your like the thing that you really love about that game?
Without spoiling things,
Oh,
I
yeah.
don't know if I can.
Which expansion?
It's really hard as well, because they're all really amazing for different reasons. Like, there's literally no part of Final Fantasy where I've been like, this is a bad game. Like, I've loved the whole journey of it, and the story just keeps going, and it's like they're adding on it, and it's not just like they're adding to a story that was already there. It's as if they'd already written the story that's happening now 7 years ago. Like, it's all so cohesive. And it's just amazing. And a new patch is coming out for it soon, which is gonna finish off the current kind of story and lead us into the next expansion. So I'm very, very excited for that. But the other thing that I am dying for, I'm not even living for this anymore, I'm dying for it, is the Final Fantasy Crystal Chronicles remake that's coming out on the Switch. It's coming out August 17, I believe, is the date. And this game, I played this so much as a child. I remember saying to a friend like a couple of years ago, being like, if they ever made a Crystal Chronicles remake or a remaster, I will literally die. And then they announced it like the next year that they were doing
it's happening.
So, oh my goodness. Yeah, I guess I'm just gonna die now.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I'm that excited for that game.
I never
It's
played it
just-
originally, so I'm curious.
Oh my god, I'm so excited. I don't know if like, because playing old games now is always a risky thing. 'Cause you never, like, it might not be so good. But they've added in so many new things. Like back in the day, you could pick like for your character, you had 4 options for each gender for each of the races, and they've added like 40 extra. for the remake.
Yes.
Like it's so good. Like I'm so excited.
So it's not just a quick and dirty remake, then it's a full.
Yeah, no,
Yeah.
they've put work into it. Yeah.
They've added online play as well, and they also have a free-to-play version. So I know I didn't play
really?
it. Yeah, I didn't play it as a kid, but I'm excited to at least try the free-to-play version because they have, I think, a limited amount of like dungeons and story that you can get to. But it will be a good like thing to dip my foot into it, and then see if I'm living for
to
it.
try that too.
Yeah, I'm
Try it, we
excited.
can play together.
Yes. Yes, please.
So my pick is kind of weird, and I only have one, but it's a bit of a. I would like to talk about it. So anyone who's watching who has seen my streams lately, I recently played a game called Portal Runner from the PS2 era. Anyone I talk to has never heard of this game before, but I had never heard of it either. And a friend of mine, Palopal, if you're out there, hello, he recommended me get it. And I saw the box art, and I was like, okay, this main character is Snatched. And so it's actually a spin-off of the Army Men franchise, if anyone knows those games from back in the day. But it focuses on a conflict between the main characters, Vicky Grimm, who's the character you play, and
Love that
Brigitte
name, by the
Blue,
way.
who's the villain. And they're both the villain is such drag. Just she's amazing. If you see any images of her, I've tweeted a whole bunch. I'm obsessed with this game. But in reading about it and doing some research, it seems like this is a really cursed game, and I kind of wanted to get into like why. And it turns out like it didn't do well. It flopped. Like
Aw.
financially, it flopped. But it has kind of a cult following. Like when I tweeted, I got a couple of random people who had found the tweet, and they're like, "Oh, I love this game. Like, I'm really into it." So it turns out in North America, it actually released on September 11. That September 11, like it was.
Oh.
It was. Yeah.
Yikes.
So it was kind of cursed from day one. And then it ended up getting panned in reviews terribly because it controls terribly. It's an awful game to play. It controls terribly, and GamePro, which was one of the major magazines at the time, actually gave it a 2.3 out of 5.
Oh.
Which is, it happens. But the amazing thing that spun off from that was the developers actually emailed the magazine and complained about the review. And I kind of wanted to just talk about that a little bit. I'll read a little bit of it.
Yeah.
And so the email came from Trip Hawkins, who was an employee at 3DO at the time. And he says, "I should mention in passing that 3DO has been one of your largest advertisers. Effective immediately, we're going to have to cut that back.
Ooh.
In conclusion, I think you owe us one because you took us by surprise and threw our review to a wolf, and you accepted his word as God even without checking in with a major advertiser."
Drama.
Yeah, and so the magazine published the whole email, so you can actually search out this email and see it goes on. It's a whole thing, and it really kind of exposed that shady relationship that gaming magazines have with publishers and advertisers, and how sometimes they might pay for stuff, or they might threaten to not pay for stuff if they get a bad review and stuff like that. And so, just this really trashy game just really has taken over my mind for a little bit. It's all of this stuff that's going on. So if you ever are in the mood for a PS2 classic, Portal Runner.
Yes.
And the music is fabulous too. It's got very like grunge, like 90s grunge sort of soundtrack.
Yes. There is something to be said sometimes about those gaming magazines back in the day. I remember, like, for example, if like the PlayStation magazine, I'm sure there's a ton of receipts on like Nintendo Power magazine or the PlayStation magazine
yeah.
where they would be like, this game is amazing, check it out. And then you play it and it's like, I don't know, sis. So,
Yeah.
Oh, did anyone get those PlayStation magazines with the demo discs
I
every like
did.
month or whatever?
I did.
No.
PS1, I had so many of those demo discs. I'm so sad I don't have them anymore. But yeah,
Yeah.
they were so good. And the demos were pretty juicy back in the day. I remember like some demos were like a few levels long, and you would be like,
Yeah.
you would have
You
a
should
pretty
have
good
a
idea
mix
of
of like-
what the game was.
Yeah, you got a good mix
If we're
of like
talk-
some were a couple of levels, some were just a video.
Yeah.
I never got demo magazines, but I remember getting from, this might be a bit an Australian thing, I don't know, but I remember
yeah.
getting Age of Empires from the Nutri-Grain box.
Oh.
And
my
so
God.
Nutri-Grain is a cereal, and they had
We
Age
love
of
that.
Empires 1 demo inside the cereal box. And I
Yes.
like that honestly took off, and then everybody that I knew from then on out in my gaming life played Age of Empires.
Oh my
because of
god.
that. Like
Was it on a
it
floppy?
worked. No, it was on a CD. It was on a CD.
Damn.
But yeah.
I think back in the day, they did have like certain cereals. Sometimes they would have those promotional things with like the CD. But my parents would never be like, "Oh yeah, let's get that expensive cereal because it comes with a CD." Like, no, girl. If you always eat that one, you're not gonna get that one. No, that's not how it works around here. But every once in a while, they would get me the PlayStation magazine. It would be delightful.
But I will say there's definitely I've definitely taken a lot of pleasure of revisiting classic games recently.
Yes,
Yeah, there's a lot of gems. back
For
in the day that we've
sure.
just missed.
yeah.
If Final Fantasy XIV didn't have my life, I would probably be playing some old games as well. But
Yeah.
here we are.
Yeah.
Right.
Sign the contract.
It's always good to do sometimes like off stream, like, because sometimes I have the streamer guilt of like, oh, this game is so good, I want to play it, I need to play it on stream.
Yeah.
So but sometimes it's good to like get into like a retro game that probably nobody would care to watch on stream, and I'll be like, yeah, let's try this off stream, let's have some fun with that. But speaking of streaming, speaking and all that fun stuff, just another reminder, where can people find you, follow you, support you? We can start with Harry once again. Feel free, again, the spotlight is on you. Feel free to self-promote.
If you don't know who I am, my name is Harry. I am a full-time streamer here on Twitcheroo. I'm streaming 7 days a week, mainly Final Fantasy XIV, but we do some other stuff as well. We recently did the Final Fantasy VII remake. We were playing some Animal Crossing. We did some Pokemon. So we do a bunch of stuff. But yeah, we're there every single day, hanging out, chilling, playing games. And we have a wonderful community there, very inclusive, very diverse as well. And I love them, and they're amazing. And you're more than welcome to come and join us if you would like.
Yes, please. And of course, PD, self-promo time.
Promo, of course. So yeah, you can find me at Lildarien on Twitch. I stream Thursday, Friday, Sunday, and Monday nights. And yeah, come hang out. I've recently finally decided on a community name. So all of you little foxies out there,
Ooh.
hi, you have a name now.
Yes.
All right, pop off then. Very good.
Got a new merch line coming out very shortly, so look forward to that. But yeah, you can find me
Yes.
everywhere. Lildarien, come say hi. I love to chat.
Yes. Check them out, please. Go support them. Thank you so much for being on the show. You can find me at Project Ruby everywhere except for Instagram, the Project Ruby. There's always that one social media where you have to like slightly change your username because someone took it and they don't use it, and I'm not mad about it, I promise. But yeah, I'm a queer variety creator from Portugal, and I stream retro games, modern games. I do this talk show every week, sometimes on Fridays, sometimes on the weekends. It depends on my guests' availabilities, and everyone getting 3 people together on a show. You need to be very strategic about time and days and all that stuff, so it can't always be on the same day of the week, unfortunately. But it's all good because you can always watch it back on YouTube. You can listen to it on Spotify, Apple Music, and all of the wonderful podcast services. Yes, please follow, subscribe everywhere. On everything. Even if you don't use it, sure, why not? I don't, whatever. Put it on the algorithm, whatever, however that works. I don't know. But yeah.
It's been a lot of fun.
Yeah, thank you so much for being here. I appreciate you making
you for
some time
having
for me. Yes, thank
Only
you.
chat as well. Hi, I see you.
Yes, thank you everyone for chatting up with us on Twitch. Again, you get all the juicy, you get to ask questions, you get the juicy scoop, not scope, when you watch on Twitch. The Portuguese just jumped out, it's fine. Yeah, thank you, we'll see you on the next episode. Bye-bye.
Bye.